I will kind of shoot through it. But this is a design that just I picked up last fall. I was brought on to review. This is a property up, I believe it's in New Hampshire. And so this is what is there now. So this is a pond. There is a little tiny home there now, like a cottage. The client is going to expand said cottage, build this garage, and really just turn this whole, what is now wooded, into a landscaped property. Currently, the water, this is all a hillside, as you can see, and the water comes flying down this hill. I was looking for the video. I can't remember where, if it was texted to me or somehow I have it, but there is a video of just sheets of water, like inch deep, half-inch deep, just moving along this property. It flies. So they brought me in to just kind of see if this whole design, and I'll just kind of keep clicking through it, was going to make sense, and you know, if this would work, because currently the water is moving down their driveway, which is here, in huge sheets, and they're afraid once construction starts that essentially they're going to fill the pond in with all this runoff. They went above and beyond for these drawings. They had these drawings done up, and they've gone above and beyond because they'd like to kind of create this shining example and be like the gold star residents on the pond, and show the town, you know, how it can be done and done right. So I've just been kind of chewing on this, you know, for the winter, looking at all of these. I do have my own kind of ideas, issues. I have not done like a proper site visit. So I'm a person that I can look at this all day and it's one thing, but until I'm standing there, you know, on the hillside or where that rain garden needs to be, I'm not going to have a full understanding of what it really is like. So here's just the stormwater designs. There's a series of walls and catch basins, rain gardens, they're calling them, infiltration areas. This kind of gets it a little better idea of what they ultimately want it to look like. So they have, you know, a rain garden, if you recall. So you can look at the rain gardens, the main ones here, and a little guy over there on the other side. So there's here. This right here is supposed to keep this hillside from washing over their driveway. Like I said, the water just flies down here, washes out like crazy. So my concern right now is with this one. But just, you know, just to kind of give everybody an idea, I'd just love to know your thoughts on it. You know, how you look at it and how you interpret it, where you see the potential problems possibly being. You know, this currently, essentially, aside from that video of seeing how much water and how fast it's moving, you have all the information I have. So there's definitely, you know, more information needed. But you know, just by looking at this, and I can go to any of the drawings that you'd like.
I don't know if the accounting office will tell me when the account's set up or not.
Yeah. Trevor, can you flip back to that first, the grading plan?
Yeah. I can, when we zoom in, I can zoom in a little bit.
It seems like it would have quite an O&M plan. There's a lot of different stormwater collection sites and a lot of different types as well that require different kinds of maintenance, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're pretty proud of this. And like I said, without a site visit, I won't be able to fully kind of tell them if it's how I feel about it. But there is going to be, they are kind of getting themselves into just with all their ideas. Once you look at, with the last one, with all the landscape involved, this is going to be now a heavily, maintained property. I'm sorry, you guys.
I'm not sure how they're managing. I mean, if the water is flowing down that fast, I don't know how they're managing the part on the road. Is that a paved, whatever it is, paved or whatever road? Yeah.
I believe that's going to be, it will be paved.
I don't
It's not
see where
gravel,
they're,
it's like gravel.
okay. It'll be compacted regardless. And I don't see where they're managing that part. And there's still quite a grade there.
Yeah, I totally agree. So this is their idea for that. That's coming down. They're trying to deflect it into this little infiltration pool, and some of it's going to swale off into this garden here. That's why I'm worried about this one getting overwhelmed, because you have the entire hill coming down onto this one. And if this is going to be moving pretty fast, especially if this is paved. So this little area it's got a nice little wall, and it's beautiful in theory, but I'm afraid that this is going to be just a constant pond. That, after any rainstorm. That's just, in looking at this, like I said, I've been kind of chewing on this since like October, November when it was sent to me. And that's just kind of, that's my feeling. Like, I don't think this is going to be enough to handle like I said, it was a good inch of water just moving that they sent me. And then, all of that is supposed to, like, my whole thought is that this is just going to jump the curb and just kind of come down into here and be in the pond in no time. I'm less worried about up here. Like this, I feel like this is, if we go to the end, like that's all green space. This is all green space. So like, I am certainly not worried about this meadow and this little rain garden here. Like all this is all, I mean, this is all legit water, but you have all these trees slowing that rain up in this area. You have all of this green space kind of slowing it, at least, if not infiltrating it somewhat. But it's in here, it's just in this built area where you're asking this little area and this little area. And there's one here, but like, that's like the last resort, right? That's a catch-all for this.
Yeah, it
So-
almost seems like there needs to be bite-sized interventions all the way down that slope. And the existing planting, are those trees or is it?
Trees, it's a wooded lot.
Yeah, I would take it in bite size rather than allowing it to all hit. I mean, then that wall will just become a dam, right?
Mm-hmm. I feel.
Do you have the existing plant or the existing as it is now?
No, this is all I have right now.
Because I'm just curious what they're doing, where that water is going right now.
Right now it's just, from what I saw in the video, it's just, this is all woods, and it just kind of, there's a little tiny place right here, and it just kind of moves down this gravel driveway.
So it's a driveway and not a road.
It's essentially a driveway. And it's just compacted gravel. It's a New Hampshire kind of, gravel driveway going down to a pond side or lakeside, cottage. So it's really no deal because it's kind of in the woods, and the water moves, but this is just, there's so many other plantings and stuff going on that my idea, or at least the impression I have now, is that it isn't a problem. But now they are going to change all of this, sculpt it to an extent, but they're going to remove the tree cover and put in, put in all these areas, put in all these walls, walkways, etc., and expand this in here to allow more access and more, like, they have the garage there and everything. So
It kind of just trails off on the left there. Is that driveway continues in front of their house and then all the way to the back?
I'm not sure how that goes. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it becomes an access road, if it loops back around. I don't know if there's more. Like, again, like I need more information with this. So
Yeah.
just to help me understand fully. Like to me, this is a pretty detailed plan with a lot of the stuff that I'm given. Usually I'm just given the grading plan, and sometimes I'll get, sometimes I get like this far, like here and here, but I don't know, nobody's ever really thought it out like this, and I appreciate all this, but this is also, I almost wish that this slide wasn't here, because this now I can't help but think when I look, when I'm looking at here, I can't help but start thinking about rain gardens. Or if I look here, I can't help but think that's a rain, because now you put it in my head. Now this is saying, so now it's like, that's where it's going. So I can't help but think of it. So it's hard for me to look. And as Patty was saying, when I've tried to kind of pull my head out of what they've done here, is I want to see something here. I want to see something here. I want to see that start to kind of come off into little areas here, and maybe even then just kind of, make its way through, through the woods or whatever, but start to lose the water uphill, as fast as possible, while that water's flying down here, just lose it here and lose it here, have something here. I think there's more homes over this way. So this is like I don't know if this is an official road. I think it's like a shared driveway.
Your driveway.
What's the scale of this? I mean, is this like, is that whole central cleared area like an acre or more, or how big is it?
I believe it's around like just under an acre, I believe, in here.
Because there might be a way, to create usable spaces, but really leave some trees. Why do you have to have open meadow? Why do you have to have these swaths of open space? I think part of the, just from a landscape architecture viewpoint, views of the water through trees can be more magnificent than being in an open space and looking toward the water. All there is these existing trees down by the parking area. They could do a lot more to retain trees further up.
Absolutely. But meadows are
and
all the
probably save
rage right
themselves
now.
Yeah. On a slope like that, it just seems like insane.
Is that seriously it? That meadow, like they're making a meadow because it's hot?
Well, they want it because they want a meadow. Like that. Everybody I talk to, it doesn't even matter. They're on like a little postage stamp in Roslindale, and they're like, "Hey, I really would like to do a meadow in my backyard." I'm like, "In your 8 square feet, sure." Like, so it's but everybody's all into pollinators and meadows and everything else. My deal and my approach to land design is more like, more often than not, I don't change the topography. More often it's like, I don't strip a site to make a meadow. If you have a wooded site, you have a wooded site. If you have a unused site, a transition site, then sure. Like I will think meadows, and I will think making it more useful, but I'm not going to go clear a 1/4 acre just to build you a meadow like that. So like this, I have nothing to do with the landscape part of this. Like I said, they just said, "Hey, will this work?" this is my water plan. Will my water plan work? So that's as far as I was brought into this. I have no say over all of this. But it's just like, like I said, meadows, pollinators, everything. It's just so hot right now that people aren't really, I don't think people are even thinking about what they're doing. They're more than happy to, to take down a bunch of trees so that they can have. I'm just like, that's just not how nature
Yeah, it's
works.
like it's a commodity. Like I
Yeah.
want one of those and one of those and one of those. And this looks like a world of pain if you do that.
It's like they're trying to swap out their granite countertops for whatever's next.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. So yeah, that's kind of what, what I'm looking at. And I appreciate the idea. I appreciate the walls and what the walls might do. But again, I'm worried that the walls, like you said, are just going to become dams, and it's just going to, I think these wetland plantings are really going to be just that. Like, I think that's going to be soggy areas more often than not. Like, I don't think that they're going to be a rain garden that's going to just kind of catch and drain. I think even if they catch and drain, I think they're going to forever just be soggy. And that's not personally like, and again, like these could be, I have to look at the soils and all that too. Like I'm missing information, but I still think that these are just going to be pretty soggy areas. And I think a meadow, establishing a meadow on this slope, even if unless you plug it, but if you hydroseed it or seed it in, like that's going to be a nightmare. Trying to get all that, established. You could try to do it in the fall, I guess. That's when I would like go at it and, and try to get that going. Personally, if I'm going to establish a meadow on a slope like this, like I will put in all that meadow seed and then get some sort of annual grass growing up right away just to hold that slope together and get that going. Because all that meadow seed, the majority of meadow seed needs to freeze first anyway. So it's not going to really germinate until after the first winter. So you're going to have a very naked area, so I would just be throwing something annual up there. Either a cover crop or a grass or something, just to kind of to keep the soil to add nutrients to the soil with living roots, but to also prevent erosion.
Trevor,
Could
can I
I
ask
ask-
you a quick-
Go ahead.
Trevor, can I ask you a quick question about the owner's expectations? I think what we're seeing is a pretty well, fleshed out site plan. Not conclusive if there were any calculations to it, but there's a lot of stormwater work out there. For what's coming down that driveway, I know they wanted to be a shining example. Is there an expectation on their part of what's going to be achieved? Because that existing condition, I think, is addressed as I'm going to call it a gesture in those downgrading areas.
And I think that's kind of how the feeling that I get. They want to be the shining example. And again, I was brought in to look at this to see if it really will handle the water. They don't want to get fined for ruining the pond. They don't want conservation coming down on them. So that's their thing. They want to believe that this beautiful picture in real life is going to work that way. So this is their expectation. And like I said, they want to have all these, these wonderful kind of stormwater management, natural stormwater management areas in this plan to, like I said, to be an example for everybody else on the pond and in the area. So they're willing to spend that extra money to get the gold star. But like I said, I think it is a nod, and I don't, to an extent it's a nod. Like I don't know if I come back and say, there's no way this is happening, you're going to need to, build a garden up here and a garden up here, and you're going to need to, have something going on with the driveway. They may not be like, yeah, I don't want to put another $20,000 into this. I don't know how bad they want it. I think they're at the threshold and they're hoping that this works. I don't know if they have another $50,000, $100,000 of gold star in them.
Trevor, one of the pictures you showed, it showed a invert height. So do all these wetlands areas have a where it's piped to somewhere?
I believe that these are. I believe this is the catch-all.
So that they're piping it if it does get high to deal
If
with.
it does get high, it's going.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I
these,
think-
oh,
I don't know if conservation's going to be super pumped about that rain garden that could get overtopped that close to a resource area, the pond.
This guy down here.
That one. And then isn't that a pond on the other side of their house? Like the bottom
This
of the
right
picture?
here. They're
Yeah.
right on the water. Yep.
Yeah. Like I don't know how much conservation is going to be into that, because if it overflows, it just is going to directly dump into the lake, right?
Right. So I think that's why these are supposed to like lead. Like I think this is the last resort. This is the last bastion right here.
Mm-hmm.
Here to here. If this takes it, then this goes to here. If this gets it, it goes to here. Oops. So.
I think your newly created rain gardens are going to become a maintenance nightmare, just as the swale did at your nursery along that gravel
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah.
Here's the last little, like I said, the last. So all these like here
Oh,
to
okay.
here
I
to
missed
here.
that bottom one.
Yeah, where that bottom one was kind of pulled out. So these are like the last little catch-alls. But again, like I see this and this getting overwhelmed really fast.
Right.
So
And like
then
David said,
this,
once they get clogged, then yeah.
then this is right. Well, here's the pond. So this,
Right.
and then this is kind of going here to here. So I'm just like, I'm not fully understanding how that's going to handle.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't, it depending on how their conservation commission works, that rain garden right there on the edge of the lake, I'm not sure.
So, like I said, I've just kind of been chewing on this, chewing on it for a while. Without a site visit, to me, it's no good. You guys are much better at, looking at this and being able to see reality, in just these lines. But I want to see, I want to see the soil. I want to see what it's really doing. I'd really like to see it during a rainstorm. But so those are just a couple deals. You guys got to share your world yesterday, so I just wanted to kind of share what I'm looking at, on a regular basis. We will go into the last of the last of the modules. We'll crank through these, and like I said, if anybody has any questions after, great. And if not, then I hope you will stay in touch. I appreciate all of the information that was sent. I started kind of like looking at it in between things, the rest of yesterday, and it was great to have all that. So we just, in this last little bit, this is just going to be the kind of in the end, the long-term maintenance and what it takes to have successful GI in the long term. And it starts with the record drawings. And of course, you guys, this is like preaching to the choir with this, but the record drawings consist of the as-builts. You need to have those as-builts as for your reference for your O&M, and just so you can see how it all goes. As-builts, I mean, this is like silly to be even talking to you guys about this, because this is something that you guys all, you all know very well. So anyhow, you're going to have the dimensions, the geometry, the actual placement of everything for O&M. This is where I'd like to see, and it's a pain in the ass, but what I've told the designers and the architects that I've worked with is, if you start, like, it's not going to be the same. You're not going to be able to cut and paste everything all the way across. But if you have a solid O&M, not only do you cover your ass, as far as like you did your due diligence, but you make it easier to track where things went wrong, and you make it easier to prove that somebody just like blatantly ignored. So for instance, like I said, if I'm putting together, if I built you a bioswale, you're going to know the soil specs and the infiltration rate, that as it went in. You're going to know the plants and what the plants look like, and I'm going to have an image. So if you're standing there and you've never seen a plant before, you can be like, I recognize the leaf and flower on that one, not on that one goes. And it's just make it real simple, stupid. And I think by doing that, we can get stuff in. That came to me when I was working with Youth Build Boston in the rain gardens and the bioswales that we were doing for the Parks Department. Because I was there and I'm teaching them, like, this is a weed. No, that grass is supposed to be there. That grass is not supposed to be there. Like, and showing them these things. And I'm like, it'd be really easy if they had, pictures of all of it. So if I wasn't there, they could be like, all right, that grass is supposed to be there. And this one, not so much. So we started talking about things like that, which was great, because by the end of the summer, they had general kind of, at least for those 5 areas, general, plant and weed ID, which was great. So the O&M, written by the engineer, but, I would say for any landscape architect or somebody putting it together, it's something that I think is very important. As far as recording the maintenance, time, date, description, location, and then photo documentation. I have 20,000 photos on my phone. pay for the extra storage just for that. I have documentation for days. Typically, photo documentations, key things to consider. Keep the viewer's perspective in mind. You know, I don't use a person as a prop, but I try to take pictures from the same angle all the time, using a landmark, so you can just, if you're there and you're looking at that image, you can find exactly, you can orient yourself right away. So typical photo documentation, including, but you can have the temporary erosion control. So this is like inspecting during construction, making sure that the erosion control is in place and that it hasn't been overwhelmed. There was that picture yesterday that you guys were showing where some of that erosion control looked like it got overwhelmed at one point. Part of it was going under. But you can have, like I have videos, I was going to show it to you yesterday, I didn't, but you can have videos of infiltration either beforehand or, you know, either infiltration test before construction or post-construction for permeables. I have 5 gallons in 30 seconds pretty much on every installation that I've done. I just have a 5-gallon bucket going into whatever permeable installation that is. For the O&M, just documenting the vegetation, documenting, you know, again, the weed pressure, the pest pressure, and the health of the plants, because those may need to be swapped out. You know, maybe it's drier than you expected. Oftentimes in urban locations, the heat that's getting thrown off of the surrounding asphalt areas, for instance, a lot of the little bioretention cells that we worked on were like right between a street and a parking lot, you know, and the heat that got thrown off that was just crazy. And the upper soils were bone dry. So that required some different planting, because on paper, it sounded like it was going to be really good. And you had average soils, average to wet soils, and you didn't. You really had, you know, average to dry soils, and them being wet was really just never a thing. The importance of the inspection report. Verify construction elements are properly installed. Track the conditions of before and after with maintenance. Track long-term conditions. As I spoke about, you know, before, especially with like the UMass stuff. I think if we get these installations in and we can document, you know, toxin loads, and we can document how long is that, you know, how long has that rain garden been there or bioswale been there? Does the soil need to be changed out, or is nature actually handling it like designed? You know, I think having this documentation right along will just only help us get better at improving these facilities, because this is kind of, it's not necessarily, I don't want to say playing God, but we're kind of encouraging Mother Nature to work with us in a certain situation and kind of meet our built environment halfway. So we have to, I think that needs to be tweaked, because nature does her own thing. She's been doing it for millions of years. So, you know, we have to now kind of say, okay, how about this? How about we balance it over here? And I think we can do that, but I think documentation is going to help. I think, you know, I think with science, you know, coming along, and I think we have to bring in different disciplines. I think we have to look at soil science. I think we have to look at, you know, plants and what plants' abilities are. And so we can look into things like phytoremediation and planting to, you know, to take up nutrient loads and take up heavy metals, et cetera, and design our soils and design our plants that way, just like we currently design our pipes and filters that way. So components of an inspection report. So this stuff, this is all just exam stuff. So if on the exam it says components of an inspection report, you guys are going to know this, obviously, but these are just things when reviewing for the exam, looking in the book, these are the things that you're going to need to know, because you're going to have a multiple choice question that's probably going to have 3 of these things on here. And one of these things won't be like, you know, the other, and you're just going to have to be able to determine which one belongs and which one doesn't. This actually over here looks very much like the, there's a parking lot in North Andover that is designed very much like that. It has its good points and its bad points. I don't know if I'll be able to find the photos, but You know, it's got all the permeable pavers in the parking spaces have failed, but the bioswale seems to be functioning pretty well. They also have a lot of erosion. They have stone dust paths without edging. So like all the stone dust is falling down into the bioswale and eroding into the bioswale. So there should have been some edging. But overall, like the design looks almost exactly like this and is pretty good. Begin by reviewing the previous report. So when you get there, figure out how it looked the last time and then compare that to how it looks now. Only make conclusions that are directly based on observed facts. Include site maps or provide a good description of the problems and the areas that they are located in. Include all relevant information for a comprehensive report. So take the photos of the area, of the plants that are failing, and make sure that you have those all located. And that's the last one is where I fail, clear and legible writing, not something I have. Further with the inspection reports, citation of permit and section numbers, observed facts, photo documentation, all things that you guys currently have and do. Asset maintenance, this is the one that I've been talking about right along, is addressing either from my perspective, it is saying to the client, you know, this is an asset. This is a thing. I'm not just putting in some trees. You are purchasing a system. Right along, comparing it to HVAC and cars and everything right along. Pick a system that you like, but you are purchasing a system, and this is something that if you don't maintain it, it will fail and it will be a waste of money. You know, otherwise it will function and it will save you money in the long run. You know, once established and once going, you know, green infrastructure is, I find, to be relatively low maintenance and high reward. But from the beginning, everybody needs to understand that this is a system that we're designing and building, and that it needs to be maintained, and, you know, it needs to be treated like the asset that it is.
Trevor, do you know of any municipalities that are actually tracking green infrastructure as an asset? Like, is there any software out there yet or any tools?
I can look. I would say that I would say that basically this area, you know, Arlington, Mystic River, kind of watershed communities are pretty up on it. I don't know if they have if they have any kind of software going, but you know, I know Arlington's slated to put a whole lot of stuff in currently, and they already have, you know, a bunch in. So I'm pretty sure they are. I don't know if they are tracking it beyond its efficiency, but I think they should if they aren't right now. But that would be my guess as places to look. And I can also pose that question and ask. But it's just one of those things that people don't think of. Again, a lot of green infrastructure, especially like the bioswales, just look like landscaping. It looks like landscaping, it's treated like landscaping. A green roof, that's special. People treat it like, because it's a building and it's a green roof, so they do that. Permeable pavements, yes and no, sometimes get the recognition and the love that they need. Otherwise, they get put in, everybody's like, whoa, permeable pavements, and the next spring they just get mulch dumped on them, you know, while the landscape is happening. So that is the final point. There is just that green infrastructure is an asset and needs to be treated as such. I don't think you guys have that full screen, do you? You're still looking at my screen, I bet. All right, here's just the final little bit. the conclusion. And just to review the course material, this is where you can ask any questions all along the way. But we're just going to kind of review, go over like the learning objectives for each module. You all have the speed knowledge inserts. You got those with your book. And from what I am told, if you have a basic understanding of between that and the practice test that also got sent to you, if you feel comfortable with all of that stuff, then you will just smoke the exam when the time comes. So terminology review, things to understand, just green and gray infrastructure, stormwater runoff and what that is, urbanization, watershed, just be familiar with all these terms as you are. Module 1, we talked about the basic concepts underlying watershed and stormwater management. So understanding what a watershed is, how a watershed works, how the natural water cycle is supposed to work, and how the urban water cycle has hijacked the natural water cycle and the repercussions of that, and just an understanding of how water is supposed to move through the landscape and how it is now. Basic environmentals of stormwater management. We've been kind of talking about that. Removing pollutant loads, reducing erosion, restoring habitat, carbon sequestration, cooling, various approaches. We talked about all of those: bioswales, dry wells, green roofs, blue roofs. And then the terminology used to describe GI practices. You guys know way more terminology than even I do because you know all the acronyms. The learning objectives for Module 2. Recognize the purpose of common GI construction materials. We talked about compost and the aggregates used, topsoil, sand, and how all that gets used. Understanding compaction and how it occurs and when you want it and when you don't. So you do not want to compact underneath a permeable paver application. You only want to roller or foot pack the walls of a bioswale when being constructed, but you do not want to construct those soils. You need to stay out of the critical root zone and create paths for your machines and even for your foot traffic and designated areas for your materials. So you're not compacting the entire site by just having people and things everywhere. Identify the different tools used to test soil compaction, and identify the basic types of geosynthetic materials and understand their purpose. So we will use geotextiles on the walls of a permeable application, on the walls of a dry well, but not on the bottom of either. And we certainly do not want to line our bioswales with geotextile. That being said, if you are working on soils that you do not want to infiltrate in, you can use a geomembrane and create your bioswale on top of the geomembrane and then have a underdrain that will take the water out of the system once the water has worked its way through and been cleaned, if you do not want to infiltrate into native soils. The other use for the geomembrane would be, of course, on a green roof, or if you are trying to direct water away from, say, foundations and the like. If you're doing something like a tree trench and you're not using a poured box, poured cement box, you would want the rubber membrane on the building side of the trench to keep the water from moving horizontally through the soil to the foundation. Module 3, purpose of vegetation. Understanding the basic functions and needs of trees, shrubs, and ground covers. As far as this is concerned, you just need to know that trees need light, air, and water, and decompacted soil. It was very basic, if you recall that slide. Key information needed for site design, species selections, and other components. You need to know how to read a planting plan and know what that's about, and know how to choose the right plant for the right place. And I always add for the right reason. Perfect example for the right reason is, let's put in a meadow because we just want to have one. You know, that's not necessarily right plant, right place, right reason. You might have perfect selections for the meadow plants, right plant, right place. That in that last example, absolutely could pick the right plant for the right place, but is it the right reason? Is it worth taking down all those trees, tearing out all those stumps just to put something else in there? How bad do you want your ironweed? Understanding the function of soil and growing media in different types of GI. Rain gardens work with just native soils in a 6-inch basin. Bioswales are going to have some sort of engineered soil with a determined infiltration rate. The current, as far as things go, I like the current UNH iteration or recipe for bioswale soils. Definitely like them better than the Mass Standard. The Mass Standard, out of all the New England states, the Mass Standard I think is my least favorite. So I'm liking the new UNH one. Organic mechanics, they don't tell you everything that's in it, but I've looked at their stuff. They're out of Pennsylvania, but they have a bioretention mix that they put together. That I've liked the data that they've shared on that. And Reed Custom Soils, I've talked to Tony Will over at Reed Custom Soils about different configurations. He agreed with me on the new UNH iteration. My whole thing, and if you know Tony, you know me, he always makes fun of it, because I like to add about 2% biochar to the mix of all the soils I do. So any bioretention soil, I do about a 2% biochar addition, just to increase the cation exchange capacity, increase the water holding capacity, increase the surface area for fungi and bacteria. So it helps me just, it does all of that and locks up excess nutrients or pollutants. Best practice is to transport vegetation. If you're going to dig it, you want to dig it as close to the time as you're going to plant it. You want to reduce the transportation stress. You want to make sure that the plants are protected in whatever form they're in. If they're in pots, you want to keep all the pots close together. If they're bare root, you want to keep all the bare roots buried and keep those roots moist and loved. And general watering requirements, either hand, temporary, or permanent watering. You have about this says you have a 3-year establishment period. My goal is always for 1 season. That's just my personal goal. I figure if I go for that and get the plant in and love it just right, then the next season, like if I put a plant in this spring, by next spring it should be good to go, and might just need supplemental watering in the summer of 2022, just if we have like a harsh summer. But it should be very much on its own for the majority of next spring. That being said, 2 years is standard, 3 years is allowed in certain situations. Module 4, again, this one we kind of flew through, one of my least favorite ones, but necessary nonetheless. You guys know all about it. Identify the hazards, know the PPE that you need, know how to manage traffic and pedestrians, and work safely in excavated areas, confined spaces, know about slips, trips, and falls, know about power lines, and how if a power line falls on your vehicle, do not get out of your vehicle. If you get bitten by a snake, identify the snake. Thank you very much to this class for letting me know that we have numerous venomous snakes that are out to get you in Massachusetts. I underestimated them in the past. Module 5. Explain critical site management goals during construction. site management goals after the practice after the construction is complete. Identify the goals and practices of proper erosion and sediment control and the importance of maintaining that. We saw in the Weston Nursery example, a 9-inch straw wattle is not going to hold back a naked hillside, a barren hilltop. Identify survey markers, keep them in place, but know what they mean. Identify site management activities to improve safety. Explain ways to manage stockpiled materials, prevent mixing and cross-contamination. A lot of that comes down to also the ordering of materials and not having everything all at once. If you don't need to have your soils mixes at the same time that your stone mixes are on site, your aggregates are on site, then why don't you bring your aggregates in first, manage those, and then have the soil mixes delivered. That would eliminate the possibility for cross-contamination. Describe how excavation and compaction occur on a GI site. Explain the fundamentals of how to read and use site plans, section drawings, and specifications. You guys are going to smoke that part in the exam. Bioretention, knowing what a bioretention cell and swale is and how they work. Bioretention cells infiltrate and filter vertically, where swales infiltrate but really filter horizontally. Rain gardens, single lot, small scale, native soil, not necessarily a constructed, we'll say like a piped overflow or under drain. Vegetated curb extensions, they are what they say they are, but I think those are great, as I mentioned, because most kind of town meetings or area meetings that I sit in on, people are saying they want to slow down traffic. This is a way you can get green infrastructure and traffic control all at the same time. Bioswales and vegetated swales, bioretention planters and tree trenches. Understanding what they are, how they function, the maintenance needed for them, and how to identify when they are not working properly. Know the PPE and the safety hazards.
Hey, Trevor,
Yes,
can you go back one slide?
sure.
So bioretention swale, it's the idea is that it's retaining, and the bioswale is more of just a vegetated swale area that you're trying to infiltrate in, correct?
Yes, a bio is going to detain, not retain. Because the
Correct.
bioretention cell is going to detain the water. It's going to hold it and infiltrate it. Either that
And
or it will
that's
leave.
that's the one that has constructed soils,
Yes.
engineered soils. I mean,
Engineered
yeah.
soils, yeah. Engineered soils.
And
And
bioswales don't.
The swale, no, swale does as well. We'll have an engineered soil, etc. However, the cell is, the idea of that is the bioretention cell is, say, for a parking lot application. It's going to catch the water coming off the parking lot, hold it and infiltrate it. The bioswale or vegetated swale is more for like a right of way. So it will catch the water coming off and move it along from cell to cell. So you'd have, on a short-ish street, say, you'd have maybe 5 to 7, different cells that would catch that water. As one fill, it would dump it into the next one. And then, so each one would be handling its water, but it would also be able to move. Or you'd have the vegetated swale, just like the whole grassy vegetated swale, where the water, it would just kind of catch that water and just move it along, slowly infiltrating it, but also just, conveying it, rather than catching it, detaining it, where it's either going to infiltrate or be evapotranspired. So with a swale, there's a horizontal filtration and there's a movement to it. With the bioretention cell, it's a detention piece.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Read and comprehend basic information on engineering and constructive drawings. Recognize how to manage utilities. Again, you guys know all of this. Understand the significance and identify the procedures of stormwater management during construction. You want to make sure that during construction, your bioretention facility, your swale or whatever it is, doesn't get filled with silt, as we saw in the Western Nursery kind of image. You know, while you have that barren hilltop, all that water's going in, and now it has ruined what may be your future detention pond. Understand the schedule, primary inspection activities, and how to use the inspection checklist. Like I said, the last person who kind of said, hey, I just passed my test, told me that a lot of it is focused on inspection and maintenance. I don't know if they're all going to be like that, but this is just the hear tell. I've never seen the test, but the hear tell is that a lot of it is focuses on inspection and maintenance. Bioretention continued. Recognizing the appropriate application of equipment for construction and maintenance. You want to use the smallest equipment possible. If you do not need a full-size excavator, use a mini-X. If you can use a micro, use a micro. Do not bring out the big guns just because. The idea behind this is to use the smallest equipment possible. Identify the various activities and routine maintenance of a bioretention facility. You're going to need to make sure the inlets and the outlets are clear and working. You're going to need to make sure that the vegetation is alive, thriving, and maintained. You're going to make sure that there is no unnecessary trash or pest and weed pressures. Recognize GI-related performance issues. So if you have pooling and nothing infiltrated, you could have a sediment buildup, or maybe you have clogged fabric. If you have big sediment washouts, you could have, or if you have excessive erosion, then somehow the water is picking up too much speed. So maybe you have too much sediment buildup in your inlet and the water's just rushing right over that, and you have erosion, or the water has, somehow managed to cut away around your inlet. If there's excessive washout, so you want to make sure you don't have erosion, you want to make sure you don't have sediment buildup, and that you don't have massive plant die-off. You want to have, I can't remember the percentage. You're gonna have to look that up. I think it's 80%, 70% vegetative cover. Understand the need for testing to verify performance, as well as testing requirements and procedures. So you want to make sure that, during construction or before construction, that the infiltration rate and the soils are what they said they were, or you thought they were before you dug. And you also want to make sure that you have proper infiltration in your engineered soils on the other end. Permeable pavements. Know which they are, how they're used, and how they work. So we have pervious asphalt, which, if you remember, has a choker course, can take relatively heavy loads, medium speed traffic. We have pervious concrete, no choker course, can take heavier loads than asphalt, medium speed traffic. We have permeable pavers, which is its own kind of section of aggregates, can take heavier loads, medium speed traffic. And then we have the grids, choker course, and it's for, they say they can take heavier loads. I don't believe so, but it can take heavy-ish loads and medium speed traffic. Rainwater harvesting. Define what it is, know the components and basic functions of rain barrels and cisterns, understand the installation sequence of rain barrels and cisterns, be able to identify if they are not working properly, and identify the basic maintenance. So if your rain barrel or cistern is overflowing, if it has a leak, if the plumbing is messed up, if you have algae blooms, all of those would be signs of them not working. Maintenance would be cleaning out rain barrels or cisterns as needed, making sure that all the filters are clear, clean, and working, and making sure that all the plumbing is clear, clean, and working. Green roofs, understand the difference in the types. So we have green roofs and blue roofs. Green roofs, we have extensive, which is a sedum, intensive, which is, so it would be a sedum roof or a drought tolerant low grass roof, 6 inches soil profile or less. And then an intensive green roof is 6-inch soil profile or greater and is planted with terrestrial plants. You can have trees and shrubs and full-on perennials. Intensive, just think intense maintenance. Whole lot more maintenance to maintain a garden. Sedums, just set it and forget it. You just got to weed it. Know the basic installation sequence of green and blue roofs. So you're going to need to just make sure that the roof is, you have the rubber barrier and that that's waterproofed and everything. You're going to put down the different layers. So you'd have the root barrier, the drain mat, the retention fleece if you want it. Then you'd have the soil media. Then you'd have the plants. Before the plants go down, you're going to put in your irrigation and then plant into all that, but have those irrigation lines run. Blue roofs are blue roofs. You're going to, however that is set up, whether it has the automated check dams that Patty was talking about, or drains that Patty was talking about, or if you have the trays set up, however that's designed. But the intention there is to hold the water on the roof, either slowing how it exits the roof or allowing it to evaporate back into the atmosphere. Be able to identify if a green or blue roof is working properly. If you have a lot of dead plants, it's not working. If you have pooling on either of the roofs, extensive pooling, then it's not working. And understanding the basic maintenance necessarily for green and blue roofs, which would be just checking to make sure all the systems are working. Checking to make sure if it's a green roof, to make sure that the plants are doing well, that you don't have you haven't lost soil due to wind erosion, that the plants are alive, that none of the system is coming up, again, due to wind. Things haven't been moved around, things haven't been compacted, etc. With blue roofs, you just want to make sure that all the systems are working. You don't have excessive clog, we don't want excessive trash or debris up there, say leaves blowing around up there. You want to make sure that it's cleaned, draining properly, and that all the systems are in place and working. Dry wells, know how they function. They're pretty basic. Describe the components of a dry well and know the function of each of the components. Explain the construction sequence of a dry well and the importance of each step. Minimum of 10 feet from the foundation. You're going to want to line the sides of the dry well with geotextile and then fill that with the designated aggregate, cleaned and crushed. Identify the tools, excuse me, and equipment used for a dry well in construction and maintenance. So again, you want to use the smallest equipment necessary. So you do not need the big mega excavator. If you are just doing a small dry well, bring in the properly sized excavator for the size of the system that you are doing. As far as maintenance is concerned, you are going to just need to make sure that all of the sumps or catch basins are clean. If there's an observation well, you're going to want to make sure that that dry well is draining in 72 hours. That just described the maintenance activities as well. Safety concerns with dry wells will be trench safety during construction. Being down in there, you want to make sure that all of the excavated soils or all the materials are at least 2 feet back from the trench. You want to make sure that you either have a trench box in there or some sort of exit from the trench, that the sides are shored up. And if you dig the hole and you come back the next day, you need to re-inspect the integrity of the walls and the soil because those could change from day to day. Identify key dry well inspection information. Just have an O&M. And again, that comes down to dry wells are very easy. Just making sure that they're not getting clogged and that they're draining properly. Storm wetlands, understand the components, functions of the wetlands. So they're usually clay lined. We have the forebay, we have the infiltration area, and then we have the outlet, which will normally exit into an actual existing wetland. The constructed wetland in this is usually clay lined with then a engineered soil above that. You have your floating plants, your emergent plants, you have your submerged plants. So we have the plants that are rooted in the soil and stay under the water. They do their filtering and they provide oxygen. We have the floating plants that just stay on the surface. And then we have floaters like lilies, which are rooted in the soil but live their life on the surface. And then we have the emergent plants, which would be like cattails, hibiscus, and the like, that live in the shallower edges and are usually more robust, more like shrubs and the like. So those are the more robust, heavier growing plants, and they live in the edges. Be able to identify if a stormwater wetland is functioning properly. So if the water is not moving through said wetland, it is not functioning properly. If the water leaving the wetland is no cleaner than it was when it came in, then it is not functioning properly. If your wetland has excessive invasive plants, dead plants, or pests, then it is not functioning properly. Basic maintenance will be keeping the forebay clean, ensuring that the water is moving through, managing the plants, which would mean harvesting them, usually in the fall, cutting all those back and getting that out of there, and making sure that all the waterways are clean and functioning. We do not want, long time of stagnant water, so it needs to move through. Green infrastructure, long-term performance. Understand the significance of record drawings. Know the importance of operation and maintenance plans. Recognize the significance of and best practices for an inspection report. Understand the basics of asset management. And this is being updated. So what I will do is I will kind of go over this. So this is now, WEF has now sent this program over to EnviroCert. I will send you the name of your contact at EnviroCert. And I will, as I mentioned, for those who came late, you may not have heard this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till Monday. If you have missed a class and you make it up, please just send me an email and I will check that you have made up that class. Monday, I am going to send in the initial attendance list. So, and you will have the contact at EnviroCert. It would be in your best interest to contact them, but they will also probably contact you to schedule the exam. They are currently working to get the exam fully online so that you can take it from your office, which will be great. It's 100 to 140 questions. You have 3 hours to complete it. You have all the information, like I said, you have the practice quizzes in your book, plus the other one. There are some mistakes that you will catch in those practice quizzes that have not been fixed, even though I pointed them out like 2 years ago. There's a quiz where you have to line up the materials with the description. There is a mistake in there. I think there's an extra material, or there isn't a description that matches one. So you didn't do anything wrong. There's a mistake in that quiz. And I think there's one of the other ones in the book. There might be a gray area or a mistake. But that's the first one that comes to mind. So if when you're doing these reviews and you're doing that, line them up, that's not going to line up for you. But it's good just to have an understanding anyway. So like I said, I will contact, if you missed a day and don't have time between now and Monday to make it up, that's absolutely fine. Send me an email when you've made it up, and I will then resubmit your name as soon as that happens, and you will be able to get the process going. This isn't a, like, you have until Monday to get this done because we're all super busy. However, we recorded these just for that reason, so that you could just go back, watch it, have an understanding. On our system, once I get the email saying I'm all caught up, I'm just going to say, yes, you are, and I will send it in to EnviroCert, not WEF anymore. I will send it to EnviroCert, and you'll be good to go.
Trevor, can I, so that people know which classes they need to make up, just as a reminder, do we want to send the attendance list out?
We could absolutely do that.
Does that
Or-
work, or should we just send notes to
We
the
could
people?
contact just the people who
Yeah, that might be better.
who missed a day.
Yeah, or that we have recorded as missing a day.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that, just so everyone knows. And the videos the video from class 1 is up. 2, 3, 4, and 5 are going up, I believe, today. And I will send a link for that. And then today's, I'll try to get that in motion as quickly as possible. Yeah, I think that's all I need. So I'll send links to all of those so you have them as soon as possible. I also just wanted to mention I was doing the test exam, or the test exam. And I was looking at this page where you have to match up descriptions with images, and really scratching my head. But remember, there's a flip side. So there's other choices on the other side, just so you don't spend 5 minutes going like, what?
But that's the one that I was talking about, where there is a mismatch in there. So those don't all line up.
Okay.
So we have come to the end of our wonderful journey together. So if anybody has any questions, more than happy to kind of dive in deeper and talk with you either about the exam and all the modules that we went over, or anything else that you'd like to talk about. Otherwise, we are definitely at the end of our journey together. Again, I appreciate all the information that was sent to me. If you guys are working on and have either images of successes, images of fails, or if you want to just time me in and I can maybe come out and visit any kind of installation that might be going in this year, like, just make me aware of it. If I have time, I'd love to come out, because I'd love to I want to see every angle. I'd love to be out there with conservation, kind of seeing how you look at a site, and I'd love to be there with anybody in DPW to seeing how you attack a site, and just kind of going at that, because the better understanding I have, for me, and the more that we can kind of play off each other, I think it's a thing. I'm really, if you haven't figured out, I've been doing this for 7 classes. I'm not into silos. So I'm really kind of into everybody kind of getting in, not into everybody else's business, but having a kind of an understanding of everybody else's pain and kind of everybody else's lens. And I think if we can kind of come at it that way, we'll have a lot more success. And the more, like yesterday, I thought was awesome. The more information exchange we can have, I think it's just going to make all of us do a much better job, moving forward. So that being said, anybody have any final questions or remarks?
The urban water cycle image that's in the book, do you have that on the JPEG? Because I want to use that as a training.
I can get that to you in a JPEG. Let me write that down.
So I want the green one and then the urban one.
The natural water cycle and the urban
correct,
water cycle.
because that shows a lot on that particular slide. So thank you.
I was wondering, Trevor, and if anyone knows of training for like grounds crew that's like a half day, 1 day kind of thing to get them started on green infrastructure. Any ideas?
I don't know of anything yet. I was working with Tower Hill and DOT pre-COVID. So not this past winter, the winter before, on coming up with exactly that. We were coming up with a class and essentially like a test to set a floor. So we would at least have, it wasn't trying to set the bar high, it was trying to kind of set the floor. So the lowest common denominator, the lowest bidder, at least you had to be at least this high to go on this ride. Was kind of where we were going with that. So that's the only thing that I can just point directly to, which isn't finished yet. So that doesn't help you. But I'm more than happy to, if there is something or if there is a need, you know, I can absolutely walk through kind of where the landscape meets green infrastructure and either do something that I already do or modify a class for that. I'm more than happy to do that because it's the knowledge that's needed.
Yeah.
And if I come across something, but I can't think of a direct training for landscape crews and green infrastructure.
Yeah, I'm trying to kick things into gear a little bit here and get, you know, the grounds crews, they know how to mow, they know how to do that, but I want to expand their understanding.
Yep,
But they don't have
absolutely.
7 days to do this, so
No,
something in between. Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah,
Doug, we could try to come up with something that could serve everybody. Let's talk about it at the Stormwater Committee meeting.
that would be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Good idea. All right. Well, thanks, guys. This was fun. It was great getting to know all of you. Very much appreciate it. And like I said, please stay in touch and keep me in the loop. I appreciate it. Thank you, Patty, very much for pulling all this together and facilitating it all. This has been awesome. I think it's been great. This has been a very interesting group for me, and you know, a very educated class for me as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you,
Thanks,
Trevor.
Trevor. Come
Yeah.
visit Western Mass.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, let us know.
that's where it's at. So I have to definitely come out west.
We could do a paddle on the river.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you so much.